it back for another week, James. How are you doing? How's your excitement level?
Oh man, I'm up there. I'm very excited. I'm glad we can finally talk about us instead of talking about everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a loaded show for you today. James and I are going to be interviewing each other. So we are just going to go ahead and jump right into the league news. One of the biggest league news items that we have to discuss today are the results of the survey. So I'm just going to go through each one and just talk about them. Individual defensive players, only one vote for that. Sorry, Zach. It looks like this is not the league to move to individual defensive players.
We don't know. We don't know that was Zach. It could have been anyone.
There was a name field that was filled out, so I could potentially track it back, but
oh shoot. Oh well, sorry, Zach.
No trade review period. 6-5 in favor of trades being processed immediately. I think we are still going to move to trades being processed immediately, and if any of the worry was about collusion or unfair trades, if there isn't anything that someone feels like is a lopsided trade or an unfair trade, you can bring it up to me or James or even the group if you want to, and we can kind of review it after it happens to make sure that nothing is, out of place. So we will still have safeguards in there that we can reverse the trade if it is unfair or if it is collusion. So I think we'll move in that direction and just have that fail-safe in place.
I think that's good. It'll make trades a lot more likely to happen because you don't have to worry about getting it in before the games start on Thursday or something. Right. You can just get them in right away. And of course, if there's anything obvious that's collusion or obviously ridiculously lopsided, then we can always talk about that and reverse it if we need to.
Exactly. Now, moving on to the waiver resets, that's going to be the same where there's just one day that waivers go through where your fab needs to go in. So we're going to be keeping that the same. We're also going to be keeping the field goal points the same, the 3-4-5 structure. And finally, we have the IR spot. This one was a lot more spread out in the answers. Of the 11 people who submitted, 5 voted for one IR spot to be added. Only 2 voted for no IR spots at all, so most people did want some sort of injured reserve roster spot. We might have to open this up to discussion more and just kind of talk through it. I personally am leaning towards just one IR spot that can be used for a regular injury or a COVID-related infection. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, and that's kind of where the votes are leaning, but I don't want to make a decision on that quite yet without having a little bit of further discussion. So look for something in the group chat in the coming weeks here.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think maybe just having the one IR spot that can be used for, whatever seems fairly popular even in years where there isn't a global pandemic. And I think if that's what we end up going with, maybe depending on how things go, we could add another one like specifically for, COVID related people. But yeah, we can, if people want to talk about it, we can do that.
Yeah, that's a good point, James. We didn't really have an option in the survey for one IR spot normal and an additional IR spot for COVID specifically. So that's another option as well. I think we'll just kind of go into the conversation knowing that most people are in favor of at least one, and the majority of the votes is for one IR spot that can be applied to any, but we'll just have a little more discussion before we lock that rule change in.
Sounds good.
So how are things looking for the cabin weekend, James?
Well, I am super pumped. I'm very excited to meet with all you guys and play some games. What personally, I think I might request that we add croquet to the list of games we play. I don't personally have one, but I've been up at the lake this week. I've been cleaning up a bit among my family members with croquet, so I'd kind of like to continue that streak with all y'all fools.
That sounds absolutely delightful. I'm a big fan of croquet. Love hitting balls through hoops, hitting the pole and heading back. I'm all for it.
Getting poison. Pick your poison. Yeah, but that's my suggestion. If any of you guys have suggestions or ideas for activities we can do on draft weekend, just bring them to us or just the group. And yeah, we wanna be doing a bunch of fun stuff. So if you have any ideas, let us know.
I can't wait. Needless to say, I am excited for the draft, James.
Ooh, well, I'm gonna need picks. Picks or it didn't happen. So
picks or it didn't happen. Well, those will be coming. But for now, let's head on over to NFL news for the week.
So the biggest piece of NFL news we have for you this time is that the NFL Players Association voted for no preseason at all. It's already been cut down to just 2 games, and they are advocating for no preseason. Andrew, do we know if the NFL has not officially confirmed that or agreed to that, right?
As of now, they have not. It's still up in the air. So officially, still 2 games worth of preseason, but the Players Association is voting for no and just going into the regular season.
Well, silver lining on that is that even though we are drafting a week earlier than we normally do, if there's ends up being no preseason, then hey, no preseason injuries. That always are a big bummer.
Very true. That does seem to cripple at least one team after the draft and before the regular season starts. Another piece of NFL news this week, both the Players Union and the league itself are working on an opt-out clause for players that either have a pre-existing condition or a family member with a pre-existing condition, or even just general concerns over the virus, that they would be able to sit out for the season. So it isn't anything that has been officially signed yet, but it does look like there is intent to allow this option for players. So that's another thing we'll have to be careful of, and a good thing to look out for when you're doing your draft preparation as well, knowing that some of these players might decide to opt out completely.
Please not Dalvin Cook. Please not Dalvin Cook.
Well, we got Madison, so I think we'll be okay.
You know what? That's true. That is very true.
Well, that's all the NFL news we have today. Let us head over to the crazy stat. So last week we had the pleasure of sitting down with
Wait.
Oh.
Okay, I'm ready.
Got the squat.
Yep.
How could I forget? So foolish of me. So last week we got the pleasure of sitting down with Sean Skirbeck, and one of the things we talked about was him setting the record for the highest score in a single game. And it came in a week against Cy when he put up 150 plus points as well. So
Bummer.
I went back and huge bummer.
Major bummer.
I went back and I looked at the highest weekly scores over the course of all of our seasons.
Giant bummer.
Of the top 45 highest scores, 2 of them were losses. Both of those losses was because the player was defeated by Sean.
Both times?
Both times.
Who were they?
So we have the game between Sean and Cy this last year, obviously. 188.7 to 152. And the second one was 2019 Week 8, when Zach played Sean, a little preview of the championship game that year. Sean had 149.1, Zach had 143.4.
Dang, it's a bad beat.
So when you score high, you got to make sure you're not playing Sean. Otherwise, it still might be a loss.
Yeah. Might fly too close to the sun and get burned on his hair because it's red, like the sun.
Got to be careful. Icarus. Crazy stat this week. So crazy. Well, without further ado, James, we got 2 interviews today. Let's jump to it.
Woohoo!
Well, James, you got to put on a different hat here now. You are the
What?
interviewee.
Wait. Okay, I only have the one.
Go find that interviewee hat, man.
Dang it. Okay, I'll just flip it around and do a rally cap thing, if
Oh,
that's
there
all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're good.
Well, glad to have you on the other side of this conversation. Let's just start with a personal update. What is going on in your life?
Well, currently I'm up spending the week at a cabin resort up on beautiful Lake Beltane near Nevis, Minnesota, or Park Rapids. It's a bit up. It's a bit up north. Yeah, it's been going pretty good. Recently, due to pandemic reasons, my position at 3M was ended, which was a bit of a bummer. But I am looking for new positions, and I was planning on doing that anyways. So short term, nothing really has changed since I've been on furlough for a while. But yeah, looking for new positions around the Twin Cities. Still living in Rosemount for the time being, which is actually kind of nice since all the pandemic craziness. It was nice not to be forced to move back in with my parents because I was already doing that. So yeah.
Very nice. Well, what kind of jobs are you looking for? What is your ideal position?
Well, I'd like some sort of materials engineering related position since that was my major in college. Just based on the kind of jobs climate, I might need to take more of a technician position, which is what I had before. I guess we'll see. I could definitely take a more involved technician position, which is kind of what I'm looking for. Maybe has a little bit more responsibility than I had before. And then sort of, once I've been there, sort of take the next step up into an actual engineering role. But yeah, if anyone knows any, materials related jobs around the Twin Cities, let me know. So I'm looking.
Well, best of luck to you. All right, so now let us talk about fantasy football. Love of the game, fantasy football.
Love it.
So, James, entering the 2019 season, you were coming off back-to-back championships and looking to go for the three-peat. But unfortunately, it was not the season you needed to defend that title.
Nope, just didn't pan out.
So you finished the regular season 10th overall with 5 wins. You did beat Luke in the first round by a score of 0.2 points to make sure that you didn't advance any further in the losers bracket, which was good.
That was nice. That was nice.
But I have to imagine the goal was getting your name on that trophy for the 3rd time. So what went wrong with this season in your eyes?
I mean, the real culprit this season was the draft. I feel like especially this year with an extra 2 teams, the draft is even more important to get good players and maybe more importantly, not get bad players. But I was very successful in getting a lot of bad players on my team. So yeah, that's the main thing that went wrong. And then I picked up, because my draft was so bad, I did end up picking up a decent number of free agent people that were on my team, but they were not the best, but they were better than what I had. So yeah, bad draft and just didn't have luck on the waiver wire this year.
Yeah, you did mention the draft being a struggle for you, and with the exception of Austin Eckler, who turned out to be a stud, great pick in the sixth round, and I remember you reached for him too because I was about to take him, and you reached for him, and I was shocked that he went that early, but that was a great pick.
Yeah,
And
I really wanted to just pick him before you could.
oh, that's a good strategy. But unfortunately, other than Eckler, you didn't have any players that finished higher than 17th in their position. Did your
Ugh.
strategy change this year, or was it more bad luck? What kind of happened with the draft?
My strategy generally is not to get too fixated on single players, mainly because when I've done that in the past, I usually am wrong, and the players I think will be good are bad. This season, I kind of doubled down on that and basically like was just going off like the expert consensus list and just picking like, next best player available. I think I maybe should have done a little bit more thinking into it because like even on my very first draft pick, I realized that I had my list in front of me on who I should pick, but I had no idea who I actually wanted and kind of panicked and ended up going with Le'Veon, which maybe wasn't the worst pick in that situation, but definitely was not the best.
So, out of the 6 years that you've been in the league, you have taken a running back number one overall. Do you think maybe that's what happened? You kind of fell back into your default of taking a running back and going with Lev Bell there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really nice because running backs, they go so soon. I really prefer taking one right away just because I'm always worried that, they'll run out and then I'll be short, which is never a good thing. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure exactly what wide receivers I was looking at there, but yeah, it was, I don't know. I guess I was stuck in my mind on that I needed a running back and maybe a wide receiver would have been better. Not really sure though.
So in the past, you have been able to make up for some of these unsuccessful draft picks by making a ton of transactions throughout the year. You average 49.8 transactions a season, the most of any owner. What is your mindset with this strategy?
My thinking is that when it comes to the draft, like obviously putting in a lot of prep work is useful, but after a certain point, it just comes down to luck. And like, sometimes the players you pick are good, sometimes they're bad, and even the experts aren't sure. So who am I to try to think I'm going to be smarter than the experts? So yeah, even though the draft I feel like ends up being a lot of luck, when it comes to in season, when you're trying to pick up players, I feel like the more effort you put in and the more time, it generally translates to you picking up better players. As long as you're always, looking at, okay, worst person on my team, like, is there someone on waivers that is, even a little bit % chance more likely to be better than that person, then you should always be picking up that person. Even if, it ends up being a ton of transactions, just trying to constantly improve your team, I think is the best strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think part of that, a strategy that you've taken to is streaming kickers and defense, not even being satisfied with a kicker or defense, but always trying to find the best one each week.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing with that is that I just don't want to spend a draft pick on a defense that I have no idea if they're going to actually be good this year or not. Maybe I have an idea that they'll be good week one. But, same thing with kickers. Like they're just so variable and you have no idea who's going to be the number one, except for in the case of like, Gostkowski when he was doing well. Like, yeah, he's probably going to be the number one kicker, but the number 5 kicker is going to be like, averaging 1 point less than him per week. Yeah, and I just think that, streaming defenses and kickers, it's nice to get like the Patriots of last year or the Bears from the year before or like the Jaguars the year before that. But like no one had any idea that those defenses were going to be the number one. And so like I might as well take my shot late on defense, and then, hey, maybe, week 2 or 3, I find that really good defense, and then I'll just stick with them. But if I don't, then I'll just, keep swapping them out interchangeably.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, got an intense question for you here next, James.
Okay.
This one might be a little emotionally draining for you.
Oh, dear.
Did you miss not having Gronk on your team this year?
Yeah, I always enjoy having Gronk on my team, just because he's a big personality. He's fun to have. I think I've only actually have benefited from him being on my team 1 year. That was, I think, the first year, 2014. Other than that, Gronk, I mean, I've drafted him a lot, and sometimes I've traded him away for Adrian Peterson. Other times he's just gotten injured. And at least this year, I didn't even have the opportunity to draft him and then watch him get injured. So I was kind of glad just not having that opportunity in front of me.
Do you think you're going to target him this next year? Just as a recap, you drafted him in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2018. Now that he's back, are you going to be drafting him in 2020?
I know he's going late, but not that late in drafts. I'm not going to rule it out. I haven't actually done a lot of individual player scouting. He's not going to be like one of my guys or like one of the people I highlight, but if he's there and maybe some people pass on him and Cy doesn't take him, like round 2 or something, then, I'll definitely take a shot in the late rounds.
So there's a chance. There's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance.
Well, I'm hoping to see that happen again. He's been very familiar with your draft boards, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now, over the course of 6 years, do you have a favorite draft day or fantasy football memory?
Draft day or fantasy football memory? Oh man, I was thinking you might ask me this, and I was brainstorming ideas. The draft where Cy did draft 3 kickers, that was very, very enjoyable. Just because, like, why did he draft 2 kickers? I don't know. I think he's learned now not to do that. But then it was the fact that he drafted that 3rd kicker, and that he said he forgot he already drafted a 2nd one. That was a very good day. Honestly, I think maybe my favorite memory is not necessarily on a single day, but on the year of my 2nd championship, when I was looking at the playoff bracket, even though I was in 6th place, I was like, you know what? If I win my first matchup and then I win my 2nd matchup, there's a chance that I basically play the same 3 players as I did the previous year, and I could theoretically beat the same 3 players to get my 2nd championship. And I think I told that to some people. We were hanging out in Carboni's, and they laughed me off. I was like, yeah, that's gonna happen. But that is exactly what happened. I believe I beat Zach and then Jackson, or is Jackson and Zach? Beat them in the same order. Then faced you in the championship, and then beat you again. And that was it was very weird, but it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, that's a bit of a crazy stat in itself there. You did, in fact, beat Zach round 1, Jackson round 2, and me in the championship game 2 years in a row.
Feels good.
So looking ahead a little bit now to the coming season, we got the draft in 6 weeks or so. What does your typical draft preparation consist of, and how far in advance do you start to do your preparation?
See, last year I didn't do enough. I think maybe because I was more focusing on trying to not suck as a commissioner. So I was more focused on the league than my actual draft. This year, I'm going to try to maybe put a little more effort in. Like I haven't really started intense looking at players yet. I usually like to start at least like a month out to start like, actually looking at lists to actually get a sense of where players are going and where people say they should be drafted. But honestly, I don't like to do too much work just because I feel like there's a law of diminishing returns where, at some point I'm just overthinking it. And like I just gotta, go with the player I feel will be good.
Absolutely, trust that gut a little bit.
Yeah, my gut hasn't been the most accurate, but sometimes you just gotta go with it.
Hey, it's gotten you to 3 championship games so far and 2 victories, so
That's
not
true.
terrible. Now, last year you were part of one of the teams to score best in the golf tournament. What does your typical golf preparation consist of, and how often in advance do you start to prep that?
Ooh, well, I like to, once it's warm in the spring, I like to get that first round out. Just any chance I can, just go out and do 9 holes. Yeah, I mean, that's the best practice in golf is just playing it over and over, and practicing your putting, practicing your chipping. If you're talking about like day of, always like to stretch beforehand. You wanna make sure you have some water with you. I'm not big in having a brewski during the round. I don't know why, but I always like to have some water to stay hydrated. Other than that, just staying loose, staying stretched out, and not thinking about it too much.
That's some excellent advice. And it worked for you last year, and we'll have to see if it works for you this coming year, too. Well, finally, James, last time you missed playoffs was in 2016, and you came back to win the league 2 years in a row. What do you need to do in the coming season to make sure that you can reclaim the trophy and bounce back from last year?
I guess just put in the time, just put in the time on doing my research on players. I think really my biggest thing going into this year is getting a real sense of how I feel about players, and especially in those early rounds, how I'm ranking them. Because I feel like in past years I've run into problems where, I say I'm going to stick to the list, but then once it comes down to it, I don't trust the list and I'm second guessing myself. I think getting a better sense of where I stand on players and who I want over another one will help me in the draft. And just continuing to be aggressive and active on waiver wires. I've been pretty good at that, and I think that's something that I'm going to continue to do, and hopefully that will be able to bring me an additional championship.
Well, best of luck to you, James, and thank you for your time and putting on the interview we had today. It was great talking to you and getting your thoughts on fantasy football.
Thank you. Great questions. I'd love to be on again.
Love to have you on again. How about right now?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, welcome back, James, as the host of the show. Got your hat back on the right way now?
Wait. Oh. Yep. All right. We are back to the interviewer / co-host hat.
It was feeling lonely over here.
Yeah. No, don't worry. I'm back. I'm back to you, babe.
Perfect. Well, before moving on, we'll talk briefly about this week's sponsor, Johnson's Trophy Cleaner. James and I have been a personal user of this for 5 years now, and great to have them as a sponsor of the show now. Great quality product, wouldn't you say, James?
Oh, yes. I wouldn't go with anyone else.
Well, we are going to now jump to the Would You Rather question before I jump over to the other side. So hit me with that Would You Rather, James.
Would you rather guarantee that you win the league once in the next 5 years, or guarantee that you won't get last place in the next 5 years?
Ooh. This is a guarantee. I got to go with the won't lose.
Won't lose.
Personally, I've had my share of victories already, and I don't want to balance that off with a last place finish. So if I can guarantee that I won't get last, but still give myself a chance at first, I think that's what I'm going to go with.
Fair enough.
What would you do?
If it was, now I'm the one that wrote the question, but if the question is phrased as if you win the league only once in the next 5 years, I think I'd rather go with immunity against losing, just because, like, I think I have a decent chance of winning it in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Just because I've won it twice already. So, like, I might just win it just on my own merit. If it was at least once in the next 5 years, I'd probably take that one because, it'd be nice to know that I'm going to win it again. And, hey, I might win it, 2 or 3 times. You never know.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point, too.
All right. Now, this one's going to be a little bit tougher. Maybe.
Okay.
It's kind of personal preference. I guess we'll have to see. Would you rather swim across a lake where 10 bull sharks were just released, or get last in the league for 5 years in a row?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this one's less fun.
This is much less fun. I gotta say, James, you're hitting me with some thoughts that I never was hoping to ever come into my head.
Now, yeah, it kind of depends. Do you have a particular phobia of water and or sharks?
Well, to be honest, when you started that and you said, "Would you rather swim?" right there, right when that first thing hit, I knew that one was probably not going to be my choice because I don't like swimming.
Ooh. But I think I can think of something you also don't like.
And that would be
the prospect of losing 5 years in a row. That's pretty rough.
Fantasy football is a blast and everything, but I do value my life more than the embarrassment of 5 losses in a row. I wouldn't want to lose a leg or a chunk of my calf or something like that. So I think I would have to go with the 5 defeats in a row.
Interesting. Can I make a pitch to try to convince you otherwise?
Sure. Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Well, everyone, ever since Steven Spielberg released Jaws back in the 70s, people have been giving sharks a bad rap. Now, bull sharks, they can live in fresh water, at least for a short time, and they are one of the top 3 shark species known for attacking humans. But, they're still not, they're not out there just trying to eat humans. I think, let's say you got a big lake, maybe half a mile across, 10 feet deep, maybe 10 sharks, you could probably swim across that. It might take you, a little bit, half a mile's a long way, but also what are the odds you're going to come across one? And maybe you come across one and he just kind of sniffs at you and is like, you know what? I don't want a snack on Andrew today. I'm good just sticking with these, perch or whatever.
Sure. Well, before I answer, I just have to commend you on your shark stats. You really got some good knowledge here about these sharks. Really impressed with that.
Yeah, I decided to put a little more work into this one this week. I don't know.
It's really impressive. It's kind of inspiring. I feel like I need to be putting more work into my crazy stat section or something like that. But to answer your question, I think you did convince me. I think you did sway me over to that side. I think I might be fine swimming. I'm not a very good swimmer, but I could do it. And worst case scenario, I die.
Well, if I was answering this question, I'd definitely take last in the league for 5 years in a row because bull sharks are very territorial and aggressive and probably won't come across one. But if I do, he'll probably want to just take a little nip and then I'll be bleeding in the water and I'll be in the middle of a lake with no help. And then, once they get a little nip and I'm flailing, who knows? I'll take last place. Thank you. And keep my life.
Well, you did seem to leave out that territorial piece of information until after I answered the question, but I did play both sides, so I feel like I come out victorious here.
All right, sounds good.
All right, well, thank you for the Would You Rather questions, James.
All right, well, our next segment is going to be interviewing the Andrew Smead. Andrew Smead, would you like to put on your interviewee hat?
Let me find it.
Jeez.
It's a 9-gallon cowboy hat.
Oh wow!
That's
Didn't want to spring for that last gallon.
No, it was a discount actually.
Huh. Well, sounds good. We have Andrew Smead here in his interviewee hat. And first, I'd like to ask you, what's going on in your life? Give us a personal update. What's happening? What are you doing?
Sure. Yeah, life is good. Working out of Church Mutual still in Merrill, Wisconsin, central Wisconsin, and living with my girlfriend, Sadie. She's a listener of the show, so I got to give a shout out to her. We got a house here in Merrill with 4 kitties. They keep us plenty busy, and yeah, just that's about it for me. Nothing too exciting. Just starting to get some prep work ready for the upcoming season, and really looking forward to it.
And could you remind us of the names of those 4 kitties?
Yeah, it's Fat Boy or Jet. He's the biggest one, and then Buffy is the mom. And then the 2 babies are Cusco and Gypsy.
Excellent.
I also don't think I mentioned my job title, but I'm an actuarial analyst.
Nice. So you do like math stuff for insurance?
I do math stuff for insurance, yep. When I was in Eau Claire, just a quick aside, when I was in Eau Claire, I told someone that I was going to school for actuarial science, and they said, "Oh, so you want to work in a morgue?" And I wasn't really sure what they were getting at. I don't know if like the mortality rate side of it they got confused with, but
Oh.
I just did a little quick Jim Halpert camera look off to the side, and then I said, "Nope, insurance company."
Nope. Not. I think they're probably thinking mortuary science.
Yeah.
I
Who
guess
knows?
actuary, mortuary, they rhyme. Okay. So this year your team was the Emmons Fielders. Now Edmonds or Emmons Fielders? How do you pronounce that?
I don't actually know. Edmonds Fielders. It's from a book.
Okay. Well, the Emmons Fielders finished the regular season 6th with a record of 7-6, and you were 8th in total points for. So it seems you kind of snuck into the playoffs there in the 6th spot. So once you made the playoffs, you probably looked around and realized, hey, my kryptonite, my Eli Manning, is not here. That, of course, being me, because I was in the loser bracket, because I was a loser. So knowing that I wasn't there to stop you from winning the championship, how did you feel going into playoffs?
Honestly, James, not good. You kind of mentioned it by being 8th overall in total points scored in the regular season. I really don't think I deserve to be in playoffs this year, and I only really snuck in because of some other matchups going on in the league that bumped me ahead of both David and Luke. So my team just wasn't as strong this year. I didn't have the confidence in my team this year. And going into playoffs, I knew there's a lot of good teams there that I just realistically didn't see myself taking down. Pretty much all the other teams in the playoffs were much stronger than mine. So, this was really the first year that I was worried I wasn't going to make playoffs. And once I got lucky enough to have a chance at the trophy, I knew I really wasn't going to have a good probability of making it there again.
So yeah, once in the playoffs, you did lose to Sean in the first round, which is no shame there. Sean had a very good team. He was the runner-up this year. But that did make it the first year of you not making it to the championship game. And that also makes it 3 years of being championship lists after winning the first 3 in a row. Do you think you'd consider your performance this season a disappointment, even though you were able to make playoffs?
I would, yeah. It's probably foolish, and I'm going off of some past results that really have no influence on a current season, but I always set my goal each year of winning the championship. So anytime that I don't reach that, it is a disappointment to me. And this year especially, I had a chance at playoffs. I got lucky enough and I put up just a terrible score against Sean, really just proving that I didn't deserve to be there. But I do have to be honest, it was a little bit weird those last 2 weeks, weeks 14 and 15, or 15 and 16, excuse me, not really having anything to do. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, I'm sure that's kind of uncharted waters for you. You're usually, fighting tooth and nail until the very last week. And I guess you must have been a little bored this year.
I really wasn't, though. I didn't have my team to cheer for, but seeing some of the other matchups in playoffs and how close they were, both on the championship side and the losers bracket, was really entertaining for me to watch and keep track of and, check those scores as well. It still provided a lot of excitement to me.
So even though this year might have been a disappointment, you are still in the lead with 3 championships, one more than second place. And in your first 3 championships, you managed to finish first, third, and second in the regular season. So all 3 of those championships, you had a pretty good team even in the regular season. And of course, you continued that success and won the championship. However, the 3 years afterwards, you have finished 4th, 5th, and now finally 6th in the regular season. And you have gone 7-6 each one of those years. So even though you still have never missed the playoffs in all 6 years, you seem to be getting a little closer and closer every single year. Does that worry you going forward?
It does a little bit, yeah. Especially this last year. I remember we were over at Jake Kessler's house for a small gathering, and it was week 13, and just seeing how the scores were laying out, and there was a realization that I wasn't going to make playoffs this year, and it was a little worrisome. I got lucky that New England came back and had a big game for Luke, which pushed me into playoffs. But you mentioned it too. The last few years have been a little bit tougher, and I think it's a combination of adding more people and also the skill level of the other team owners I feel like has really increased over the last years. It feels like a lot of people are paying more attention and getting more involved and having a strong desire to, be the top guy and get the name on the trophy and everything. And having to compete with all of these skilled owners is making it more difficult for me. And I do think luck has a part to play as well. I know I'm one of the highest or one of the lowest, however you look at it, for points against. I get pretty lucky in my matchup sometimes that I'm able to sneak out some victories, even in some low scoring games. So I know eventually that's going to run its course, but I'm just trying to hold on as long as I can.
All right. Yeah, I definitely agree with you that the overall skill has increased. As someone who kind of relies on in-season pickups to bolster my team, it's a lot tougher when people are picking up the players that I want instead of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with adding Matt Zabel and Brandon Hubbard this last year, we got 2 more people to compete with as well. That even the draft got more spread out in the quality of players available.
For sure. Also, not sure if you know this, just thought I'd add a fun fact. You have only ever had a regular season score of record of 9-4 or 7-6.
Wow.
4 years out of the 6, you've been 7-6, and 2 years you were 9-4.
Wow, how about that? 7-6 does not seem like a good record that would at least get me to the championship game. That's kind of surprising to hear.
Yeah,
that.
well, yeah, you only won one out of those 4 years, so that doesn't seem to be the best record.
Sure.
So I don't have your draft in front of me right now, but I'm hoping that you do. And I thought maybe you could go over your draft for us, mainly looking at who do you think were your biggest hits in the draft and who are your biggest misses?
Sure. Yeah, I felt like my running backs were decent. I got Alvin Kamara, number 1. He was okay. He got injured there, which really kind of hurt me. Chris Carson, I took 2nd round, and he too was pretty good, but still a little banged up there too. Leonard Fournette, a ton of yards, but I think he only had like 2 touchdowns on the year. So, that was my running back core. I went 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds. They were above average and they were solid, but they weren't anything great. And that was a real frustration for me this year, having those types of players that weren't giving me the weeks that I needed, but weren't being bad enough that I could justify benching them or cutting them or trading them.
Roster cloggers, some might call it.
Yeah. My biggest pick of the draft was Chris Godwin in round 4, who ended up being wide receiver 2, I believe. I had a really good feeling. Pick. Yeah, I had a good feeling about him that year, and he was one of my target guys that I went after. And it turned out in my benefit. But I think my most before I get there, I also had Mark Andrews, tight end, and I picked up Darren Waller pretty quickly in free agency. So I had 2 solid tight ends throughout the season that I was able to just throw in and lock up that position. That was really nice. But my most frustrating pick this year was Kyler Murray. I took a chance on him, and he was fine to start the season, and then he started being good, and then he started showing a little bit of greatness, and then he went back to being fine. And the end of the season, I had to start him, but I couldn't rely on him, just like my running backs. And it was just so frustrating that I just wanted him to be a little bit better and to take that next step to be that for sure guy at that position, but he just couldn't do it.
Yeah, good, but not good enough.
Yeah.
And not bad enough to pivot to someone else.
Exactly.
Now, without giving everything away to the listening audience, could you describe your general draft strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from what I've heard, I have a little bit of a different draft strategy than some other people. I go into the draft with target players that I want to get. It isn't all of them, but every now and then I just have a good feeling. It's based around stats and things that I've seen. It isn't just a gut feeling, but I have a really good idea of a certain player and their value at that position, or just their value overall, and I go into the draft saying, I'm going to pick them in this round. And I have a few backup plans in case they're taken, but that is kind of the strategy that I have. I spend a good amount of time in the off-season leading up to the draft, looking over stats and things to try and identify those players, but and they don't all work out. Like I mentioned, Chris Godwin was one of my target players this year. Austin Eckler was one of my target players that you stole from me. Both of those turned out amazing. But then I also had target players like Dede Westbrook for Jacksonville, who didn't even end up being the number 3 on their team or something crazy like that. And Jared Goff was another one who didn't have a good year. So they don't all work out, but that's kind of the strategy that I have.
All right. Well, that is my gift to you, the rest of the league. Not sure how you can copy that, but good luck, and hopefully that might help you. So pivoting to a bit more cheerful subject, at least for you, not for everyone else. So I'm just gonna go through. Now this is data from that it hasn't been updated for the most recent year. This is just from the first 5 years. But I'm just gonna rattle off the names of the 5 people that you do the best against, the people that your points for is highest against. And that is Jake, Clay, me, Sean, and then David. And going in that order, you on average score 101, 104, 107.5, 108.1, and finally 119.1. That is what you average against David. That is a jump of over 10 points from your second place person you like to beat up, which is Sean. This most recent year, I believe you continued your streak of never having lost to David. How does that make you feel? And do you get nervous or relaxed facing him with your record against him?
I get both. I get both nervous and relaxed. I know there have been a couple of times, I want to say 2018 comes to mind where I had a terrible team, or like my top players were on bye, and David was on this hot streak. He was just winning game after game, and it came to that week, and I remember talking to him and saying, like, there's no way I'm gonna win this game. You've been so hot lately, and I've been so cold. And then I ended up just barely beating him. So I get both. I get nervous that the streak is gonna end, but the superstitious side of me gets a little bit relaxed and says, the streak has never been broken and it's going to stay that way. But, I know ultimately it just comes down to luck, and I've just gotten very lucky against David in the past.
How many pictures on average each year do you take for your excited for the draft posts?
Before the final version gets sent out?
Yeah, before you get, the right one that calls to you.
Right. Well, I got to do some editing, do some touch-ups, and a little bit of lighting work needs to be done. But I think at most it's been 2. I'm not too picky with it. Sometimes my bowl is a little bit more prominent than I want it to be, or something like that. But I do have to say I'm a little sad that I'm not going to have my lioness friend to take the picture with this upcoming year.
I might be able to get another large cat figure potentially. Might hear more about that. I'll try it. I'll look into that.
That would be something.
And I guess finally, how does it feel being back as a commissioner after your 1-year sabbatical?
It's good. It's fun. I have a good time being commissioner. I like coming up with ideas of things that we can do to all stay connected and try and make fantasy football as fun as it can be for everyone. That's something that's enjoyable for me, and I hope it's enjoyable for everyone else. And I was really busy with an exam and everything, so I was very grateful to you, James, for stepping up and running a very successful season. But it does feel good to be back, and I hope it's going to be a fun season for everyone again.
And I'm sure I speak for the entire league when saying, even though I'm an excellent commissioner, it feels good to have you back in the driver's seat as well with me.
Well, thank you, James. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I think you can take off your interview hat because that is, or interviewee hat, because that is all I have for you.
All 9 gallons of it. 1 second. Okay. A big hat. Well, James, it has been a pleasure both asking questions and answering your questions. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you and I as it was for the listeners this week. And that's all we have for you this week. Tune in next time when we interview another one of the team owners and update you with some more news. So thanks for tuning in. Signature sign off.
Wink. Oh, I'm doing an interview. This is my little cousin Ben, by the way. Do you want to say hi, Ben?
Hi, Ben.
Wait, no.
Hi, Ben.
He's very clever like that. Do you want to go play Beyblade somewhere else right now?